Good day and welcome to our latest episode of Mustard Seeds. Today's guest is a dear friend of mine, Cindy Burke-Hunter. She's also a neighbor, so I know quite a bit about what she does, and I know quite a bit about why she's a perfect candidate for an interview for this. But like so many of these people who are so busy, it was not easy getting her to agree to come, for one thing, and finding the time was another thing. And you're soon going to find out why. Cindy is a mother of two. She's married. She lives out in the country, as do I. She is a woman of the country. She's a pioneer woman, as I am not. And I never cease to marvel at what Cindy does, but not only what she does, but how easily and matter-of-factly she seems to do it. Kind of the way I prepare a cup of tea. So Cindy, thank you for making the time to come and join us. I'm so grateful that you finally found the time. You have an incredibly busy schedule, and some of it is work, and some of it is your pure pleasure of what some people would call work, I think.
Thank you.
I'm mostly interested, because of what this episode of this program is about, which is mustard seeds and children, and how far back, how soon in life do you get an inkling of what it is that you're going to become later in life. And so that's where I'd like to start.
Sure.
At what point in your life did you realize that you had an unlimited capacity to be interested and curious about so many things and a talent to do them all?
I think a lot of it came at a very early age for the cooking aspect of it. My mother was always very fundamental in letting me help in the kitchen and piquing my interest, and some of my earliest memories are helping make things up at the stove and making desserts and whatnot with her, and she's always been very encouraging to this day about anything that I undertake in the kitchen, and it's been very, very helpful. I come from a family where there's a lot of food and a lot of enjoyment of food, and everything's based around it, and we're really all very good at cooking.
That's quite a different story from mine, because my mother's idea was that I shouldn't learn to cook until I got married because I'd have to cook enough afterwards. Well, afterwards took quite a long time. So being in the kitchen was never an intimidating prospect for you.
No.
So from a very early age, you developed something that you were good at. You
Yes.
knew that you were good at this. That's a really big thing for kids, isn't it?
Yes, and I still make a lot of the same things as I did when I was learning, because there's a lot of enjoyment. It's comfort food.
It is, and healthy food too. I've sampled it. It's healthy and it's delicious. So you took that, and was that what your first field of study was?
No, actually, I started when I left high school in Sudbury. I came to Ottawa. That's how I ended up here for university. I was a student at the University of Ottawa, starting in 1991, and I was starting off as a history major, and then I switched to do a double major of history and English, but I left before I ended up completing my diploma, all my studies, and that was a time when I think I was more interested in becoming a teacher.
Oh, okay.
But there was also not a lot of positions that were open, and I had some friends that were teaching, and they were lucky enough if they were only subbing one or two times a week, and that didn't seem secure enough for me. Yeah. So I took a year off, and I was working, and I was cooking, and I enjoyed it so much, I decided I'm going to go to school and do my culinary.
All right, let's hear about that. That was quite an undertaking.
I was fortunate enough to be sponsored. I went through the apprenticeship program, and I had a fabulous mentor. He actually worked for the Governor General at one point. His name is James McDonald. He's in Montreal now with his wife and his family, and he taught me so much. It was incredible. His background, aside from working for the Governor General at one point, he was a saucier. So in kitchen terms, that means that he's pretty much in charge of all your main component of your meal, the sauces and the meats. So there was a very strong emphasis on sauces and meats in my training. So as time's gone by, I seem to be really focusing on a lot of that because I was fortunate enough to have a very good mentor that gave me a lot of valuable information that it's amazing the stuff that I'm putting out. Sometimes it even surprises myself because I couldn't imagine being where I am now, doing all these things if I hadn't had that tutelage along the way.
So there's a component of chemistry there that I don't know how much you consciously take into account, but it must be there. Surely, the way you mix spices and
Yes.
fats and
Yes, there's
starches.
absolutely. The baking is more of a science than cooking,
Okay.
but you can't change cooking temperatures or what it takes to make food done a certain way. It's sometimes it's just your personal spin on it that makes it a little different than somebody else's.
So where were you studying? What institution were you studying with?
I was at Algonquin College, actually.
At Algonquin
Yep.
College, okay. So you studied there, you loved what you were doing, you were a natural at it because you'd pretty much been brought up with it, and you had a good mentor,
Yes, I did.
and you love food. That's really an important component of being a good chef, I believe.
Very much so. I love food. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love your food. So then you became a chef,
Yes.
okay, and where did you work?
I could have taken a very different path from what I am actually doing now. I'm still working as a chef, but when I started out, I had visions of grandeur. I wanted to work at high-end restaurants and resorts and make all the wonderful high-end food. But I also had a very strong sense of family and wanting to have one, and I know that the profession I chose isn't necessarily the best environment to be trying to maintain a relationship and be a parent, because in order to do that type of cooking, I would be evenings and weekends.
Right.
And that necessarily wouldn't have been the best option for me to have the other component of my life to have a family. So I ended up going more daytime.
Okay.
So
Limiting your options.
it was, but at the same time, I was fortunate enough to have employers that were more than happy to let me express my individuality while I was cooking, and they fostered it, and it's been really nice. And some places that I've worked at, they're still serving some of the items that I've actually
created?
yeah
Oh,
fettuccinis. I used to work for them on Elgin Street for Lucio Yabar. He's
love that
now
place.
yes, he's amazing. He makes everything from scratch, and it's all wonderful, fresh ingredients. There's nothing in it, and I still talk to him. I've consulted for him from time to time along the way as well, and he's moved his location now, but he's still preparing excellent food. He's actually working a lot with CHEO, so he's providing his pasta products for the Children's Hospital, which is
Terrific.
excellent. Yeah,
Comfort food for children who,
but really healthy
Need.
comfort food for their families as well.
yes. Now, when you do cater
Sometimes,
from
yes,
time to time,
yes,
or is that only by special request by special people?
usually.
Usually.
It's just I'm very busy, so it has to be something that I really believe in, that I want to be able to help and put my best foot forward to provide my services.
Because that was what struck me with those times when you did cater for me, is how incredibly relaxed you were, and no fuss, no drama, no stress, not at all like the sorts of things you see in the cooking shows these days, which are probably a very hyped up, dramatized.
Probably. I mean,
Yeah,
some of it
standard.
is very factual, but
Yeah.
when you do it for a while, it just becomes like anybody else's job. It's just part of who you are. You're able to do it. It doesn't matter what. It takes place, and it's very
Fair
natural.
enough. Fair enough. All right, so you've established yourself as a qualified, competent, easy, happy chef, and you also have branched out into other areas, or you know what I'm talking
Yes.
about? Yes. Are those things that you always did, or did you just figure out how to do them because it would complement what you were doing?
Well, actually, I've been working for Corrections, or it's now the Ministry of the Solicitor General, for the past 11 years. And where I am, it's it's not the same type of cooking that I was trained to do. It's more on a supervisory role where I'm just maintaining food safety and portions and just making sure that everybody is getting what they're supposed to. Now, that's not very stimulating. So I trained myself on different aspects because I just didn't want to be sitting idle. And it's not a use it or lose it, it's just, I didn't want to lose the passion. So I ended up learning to, well, one of the things I do is I make a lot of sausages and charcuterie. A lot of that stemmed from the fact that my father had a quadruple bypass probably 10 years ago. And you have to try and eat healthy, but you want to enjoy your food, right? Nobody wants to eat steamed everything or boiled bland. That's just eating for sustenance. There's no joy in the food. So I worked really hard. It took me almost 2 years to get the first prototype batch of sausages, I guess you would call it, the base down that I was happy with, where the meat wasn't dry, it had the right balance of spices, it wasn't salty, and they don't shrink. There's no gristle, there's no nothing in them. Now, I probably now make about 15 different types. And I don't do it as often anymore because my husband was on the road a lot, and I need his help to do it because he works the machine and I'm the one who deals with all the sausages coming out. But I make them once in a while now. And my husband was also very, very interested in beekeeping when we moved out here from Orleans. And so he set up 2 hives in our backyard, which are doing exceptionally well. And they're flourishing. So I'm hoping to get a nice batch of honey this year.
That astounds me. Hives in your backyard. I mean, most people try to stay away from bees, and you've got them in your backyard.
They're harmless. They really don't want to bother you. They just go about to flowers. I see them in the garden. I see them on the neighbors' trees, on the lilac bushes, on the roses, everywhere. And they're, even sometimes they're up on the deck where I have plants, and they don't care.
They don't care.
No, I walk up to the hives without a bee suit on. No problems.
I read somewhere, I think it was it The Secret Life of Bees? I can't remember. It was a lovely little novel, and they mentioned in there that bees won't bother you if they don't feel that you're scared. That might be what you've got going for you.
I don't know. Maybe it's a false sense of security when you have the bee suit on.
Yeah.
But you know what? They have no reason to provoke an attack on you. You're not doing anything to them. It's not like you're trying to upset their hive or attack them. So, but yeah, we've got the hives in the backyard. We're fortunate enough to have 1.5 acres, and we've got them at the very back of the property, and they don't bother anybody. And we also have a lot of maple trees on the property. So maybe about 6 years ago, I decided it'd be a lot of fun with the kids to tap the trees. So we do that every year now.
Every year?
Every year.
That's an enormous amount of work. You actually take time off from work to do that when the season
sometimes,
comes.
yeah.
Oh, sometimes?
If it's going to be a really heavy season, like if I see that the weather is really perfect, the conditions are right, I'll take the time off because I can't keep up with it otherwise.
Yeah. And we had that a couple of years ago, I remember.
Yeah.
What was it like this year?
It wasn't very good. It was such a strange winter because we had a lot of really cold snaps. It was a late spring, and it wasn't really conducive to a really good syrup season, but the syrup quality was excellent, just not a lot of it.
Okay. Now, we live in Canada. We've got maple trees everywhere. Everybody's got maple trees, 1 or 2 maple trees. If you only have 1 maple tree in your backyard, is it worth tapping and
you could. It would be.
Syrup?
It could be fun for you and your family. I mean, you're not going to get a lot because it's 40 liters of raw sap to make 1 liter of finished syrup.
All right. And how much does a tree give, approximately?
They can give you up to 1 liter each of finished syrup on average. It depends too, right? It depends on. I just use the old bucket and spile method, but a lot of people use the vacuum tubes, and you get a little bit more from that because there's a natural suction that comes and helps bring the sap out. That it doesn't seem to be as affected as it would be for the colder days, but it's just, personal preference, I guess.
Yeah. So did you know all these things before you started, or you
Nope.
had to read up on it?
Learned it all as I went.
So never had you seen anybody do it?
Well,
Well, of course we see the trees tapped.
yes, I mean, I've gone to a sugar bush, but never really paid attention so much as to how the whole product was finished. But it's very simplistic.
You don't intimidate easily, do you?
Not with food. Not with food. Other things, absolutely. Food's my comfort zone.
Well, it's what you know how to do. And I think that's one of the wonderful things, because as with everybody's life throws curveballs at you and unexpected problems and challenges to overcome. And personally, I believe that when you have a grounding, a sense of self-confidence and competence in one area, it's easier to carry it over into another. There's a certain logic to things. Would that be right?
I guess so, yeah, in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, you did ride the challenges that came at you very, very nicely from what I could see.
I try.
You tried. I mean, I'm referring in particular to your husband losing his
Yes.
job in high tech and having
Yep.
to turn to driving a truck
Yes.
and being away for weeks on end
Yeah, that was a challenge, but
with 2 teenagers at home.
yes.
Challenge triplicate.
But to be honest, I think that's what you're supposed to do when you're in a relationship, and when you have children, you have to ride the good with the bad.
For
I mean,
sure.
he didn't get fired; he got laid off. It's
Oh, yeah.
company went through, I think, 3 amalgamations. He was lucky enough to go through it and last that long. And he went through it originally with Corel, way back when, and he got laid off there as well. I was pregnant with our son at that time, actually, so that one was
Oh,
really
dreadful.
hard for him. Yeah, that was a little bit stressful. This time it wasn't as bad, but he decided that he did not want to go back into computers because he was really concerned about being laid off again. And he's not bilingual, so there's a little bit of a shortcoming for him in employment, even though it's primarily English language for computers.
That's what I would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. It's Ottawa. So he went back to school and he's been working ever since. He's actually back in town after 2 years of doing long haul trucking. He's back at home. He's working for a company here, and he's home every night. He's home every weekend. It's great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and the kids appreciate it, although
Oh, very much so. Yeah, no, it's very, very good to have him back, like not just for myself, but especially for the kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say it's pretty clear that you two have shown your kids a work ethic, a sense of you keep working, no matter what, you keep working, you keep adjusting. And from the little I know of your son, he's followed through on that. Your daughter's still too young
Yes,
to really be in.
Yep, they're very busy. My son actually 2 jobs, 17, works all day at a full-time job at the water park, the Calypso, and then
Yeah.
he delivers pizza in the evenings.
Is that what he's doing?
Yep, lives in his car.
Well, then I'll have to start ordering pizzas. I'll get to know your son. Which company?
Actually, he works for K&Z, just in Clarence Rockland.
K&C. Okay.
It used to
Which
be
is-
at Gabriel's.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that. I'm so behind the times. See, I try to cook, and with only 2 of us, it's pretty much limits our options for takeout food because they're usually bulkier.
Yes.
All right. So I'm particularly interested in the fact that there are times when kids are growing up and they lose their sense of direction, their sense of purpose, their self-esteem really through it all. Adults lose their self-esteem when things go wrong. You lose a job, you lose your self-esteem, unless you've got the attitude of, oh, well, maybe this is an opportunity to try something else and learn something else.
Yes.
You've shown the example at home, so your kids are okay with that. There are always some people who who have a little bit more difficulty adjusting, and that's just the nature of the beast, the human nature. But far too often, and I think there's such a problem with addictions in our society, especially among young people. and teen suicide and all of those issues that befuddle us and worry us and scare the bejesus out of us, really, when we're
Absolutely.
parents. And yet, with a certain sense of, darn it, I can do it, they get through the harder times.
Yeah. Mental health is a really big challenge for today's youth, especially girls.
It's huge.
Yeah, especially girls. It's everything's garnered so much attention, thankfully. But I think social media is really playing a big part in it because everything's so instantaneous.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And you can't see a person in their face, and you can't really get a sense of that's a human being, not just a cartoon
That's right.
on the other end. You wanted to be a teacher at one time.
Yes, I did.
Has what you've gone through made you want to perhaps teach in some areas through help kids? Like there's animal-assisted therapy. Is that there's such a thing as cooking-assisted therapy?
I think I would be open to something like that. I actually was fortunate enough to be able to combine the two interests at Algonquin a few years back. I was teaching some of the continuing education courses just for general interest, and it was a lot of fun. I really
could so
enjoyed
see
it.
you being a teacher. You certainly wouldn't be like, what was it? Jamie Oliver was so famous for making his students cry because he was so exacting and demanding. That's hardly the way to teach anybody anything, obviously.
No.
So here you are at probably the mid stage of your life, maybe a little bit before. Do you see, if you had $1 million, would you see yourself doing something different with all of the wonderful talents you've got and your curiosity?
It would still be something involved with food. I've had this conversation more than once, and especially I guess in the past few years when my husband was looking at alternate career choices. I said I would want to be in your shoes because I really don't know that I would want to do something else or would be suited for something else. I'm not a desk person. I enjoy the movement, the flow, the chaos of a kitchen. It's I'm very comfortable in it.
Would you enjoy the idea of setting up a catering company, or do you find that that would be something that would limit you too much?
No, I don't think there's a lot of limitations when it comes to catering because, I mean, you can have a set menu, but you have to take into account whatever your client's requests are, and if you're able to do it, do it.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I particularly like the idea that these days, of course, there's still way too much junk food. There are way too many health issues among kids of all ages, from babies to the day we die. Seniors are malnourished. They don't want to cook for themselves. They don't care about cooking for themselves. They don't eat the right things. They want to grab something. Far too many babies have been brought up by mothers who haven't looked after themselves, have been gestating, and mothers who haven't cared for themselves. The stores, you walk into Bulk Barn and there's all of that trash that's there, and it's the wrong kind of comfort food, right? I find it infuriating because, of course, these are people who are developing problems who are someday going to become a drain on the health system. There's no doubt about it, and it's avoidable.
Absolutely, it's avoidable, but I think that the biggest problem is we're a society now that needs to have instant gratification.
Yeah.
And a lot of what parents may seem as a healthy meal is really just a frozen meal that's packaged to look like it's healthy, but it's not. And I'm not trying to take away from the parents that are doing the best that they can, but it comes down to being able to learn to understand reading what the ingredients are in labels and knowing what is actually the good part of the food and which is the garbage.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of misinformation.
There is, and it's not too difficult to figure out what it is, what's what, because Google's there for one thing.
Yes.
And I guess there are blogs. There must be.
There are, but as a society as a whole, we don't cook very much anymore.
No, sadly enough, and it's all excused on the grounds that nobody has time, right?
That's right, and families are very overscheduled between work and activities. It's hard. You have to find your priorities.
You do. Now, my parents, I grew up with parents who were both working, And what they did was they cooked on weekends, and then some of it they froze, some of it they just put in the fridge, and then we ate it during the week. But we
Absolutely.
always ate well.
Yes.
We always ate well. Mind you, I didn't know what a simple vegetable was until I was in my 20s, because Hungarian cooking, everything is with sauces.
Okay.
Well, that was fine. That was fine. You can make healthy sauces, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh dear. It really breaks my heart when I see what's happening with so many kids and so many people developing heart problems and diabetes and whatnot for lack of proper nourishment, simply because of lack of information, education.
Yeah. And I think if people were to invest a little bit more time into that instead of the next scheduled outing or whatever else, just use that time and schedule it for cooking, you might see a difference. It just has to be a little bit. It doesn't have to be all gung-ho. It's very simple to make a very healthy dinner quite quickly in under 30 minutes that anybody can do.
For sure. Mind you, it's true, what people don't like is the cleaning up afterwards, eh?
Yes, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, you're one of those people. That's what you have kids for. You train them for that. Or something. Oh, paper plates, what the hell. Oh, I'm sure that they're going to come up with biological disposable plates that you can just bury in the ground and feed Mother Earth with it and give it all back right away. Not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, I know they make them out of sugarcane right now that they compost. And it's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I absolutely find it amazing that with your busy schedule and with your 2 teenage kids, and I'm repeating myself here, but I want to make the point. I want to make the point because it's an important point. You drive long distances to get to work. It's not like you work in your backyard.
No.
No. It's a good hour commute from time to time.
Can be, yes.
Yeah. Crazy hours. Like you're on the road in the wintertime, or I guess even in the summertime, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
I start at 5:30 in the morning, so I'm
You
on
start at
before that.
5:30.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you're home at 4:30, whatever. Not only do you do all of these things, not only do you have this long commute and everything else going on at home, but you also work in a very stressful environment with inmates. Do you actually interact with the inmates?
Yes, the inmates that we have, some of them are my staff, actually. They work in the kitchen.
All right. So you're pretty calm around that too?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I guess coming home and dealing with teenagers is nothing compared to that.
Dealing with the inmates is much easier than dealing with the kids.
Okay.
They're very compliant, whereas the children are not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
But then again, they've got some of your spunk, so that's probably that's it.
Yeah, that's probably it, actually.
You can squeeze in bees, you can squeeze in maple sugar, you can squeeze in visits to your family, you can squeeze in fun time. And I hear from your daughter that when it comes to fun time, you don't hold back either. No. So there we go. See? Everything is possible. You do it in the name of love, and you do it with love for your kids, love for your family, love for something that you like to do and you want to pass on, and it works. And you end up with a nice, calm, lovely woman like Cindy, whom I'm really happy that I met.
And myself as well.
Good. So with that, folks, maybe you're inspired to start looking up some simple recipes online, or coming up with a way to make that dreadful cleanup effort after cooking a little simpler. Whatever it is, just inspire and think of your kids and think of the future and think of you tomorrow, because you're still somebody's kid too. See you next week.